All right, welcome my beautiful people to This Week in Review. I'm gonna get started with today's question, and today's question is, Fernando, I saw your video on running a successful short-term rental management company. Can you summarize or break down some of the key points that I should be focusing in relation to running a short-term rental management company? Well, here's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a separate video because this, running a short-term rental management company entails a lot of different things. I'm gonna give you 7 key points that you can do research on, and soon I will do a video breaking down these 7 steps. The first step, as always, is to do your market research and do your planning. Within that market research and planning, you need to do a couple of things. Number 1, identify your market. Number 2, do a competitive analysis of your competition, right? And then number 3, write your business plan. Once you have those first 2, then write that business plan. Step 2 will be to understand what the legal and regulatory compliances are within your specific area. Within that, you gotta know what licensing and permits you're gonna need, what type of insurance you're gonna need, and then more importantly, for me anyways, is getting with an attorney to get your contracts and agreements down and making sure that they're solid, right? Next will be your property acquisition. Are you gonna be an investor in buying your property and managing your property? Are you gonna manage other people's property? Are you gonna get into the rental arbitrage game? That property acquisition is going to be important. Step 4 will be your marketing, your branding. Within that, obviously you have to create your brand and start working on creating that brand. Really focus on your online presence, on listing your properties and what type of platforms you're going to be listing your properties in. And then lastly will be your digital marketing strategy that you're going to be using. And I think that's going to be very important, especially if you want to acquire a property and get some customers. Step number 5 will be your operations side of the house and management, right? You're going to have to, within operations, there's 4 different things that you have to focus on: reservation management, cleaning and maintenance, your guest services, and inventory. Within that, you also want to know what your performance or do your performance monitoring, so you can constantly analyze and determine whether or not what you're currently doing is working, right? Your KPIs is going to be very important when you're starting your short-term rental management business, so that you can know whether or not what you're doing is working. Step 6 is focusing and establishing what your guest experience is going to be. Personalization of your guest experience is going to be key, but more importantly, you need to establish a system of feedback and reviews. Now, on all the platforms, you're going to get some kind of review that you can use to analyze what you're currently doing. But I highly recommend you also establish a feedback system, and the way we do it is through email, as to whether or not what you're doing is working. And the last thing is which also is just as important, is figuring out a plan for your continuous improvement and growth, right? I always said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I don't care how successful you are, you constantly need to be focusing on growing. Within that is that feedback evaluation, your expansion and diversification, and then your professional development, not only for you, but for your staff. So those are the key areas that I would be focusing on when establishing a short-term rental company. But again, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button, because I will be doing a video specifically on this. In fact, it's probably going to be a 3-part series because I don't want the videos to be super long, but I want to get into details and into the weeds on these 7 steps, and that should be coming out shortly. Now, let's go into our performances. So revenue for this week, it's $32,438. Additional revenue comes in at $8,253. We have our Nights booked for this week was 228 nights booked. Occupancy rate is 5703, very, very low. Really don't want that number to be that low. Average daily rate is 155. RevPAR is at 89, also kind of low. For this week, Airbnb brought in most of the money at 25,000. We came in at 4.5 thousand. Booking.com came in at 3.7 thousand. Marriott came in at under 1,000. Others at 800. RevPAR per area. Deerfield Beach is at 194. Oakland Park is at 252. Other is at 86. And Dania is at 194. In terms of challenges this week, first of all, personnel, nothing to report. In terms of challenges this week, we did have some challenges when it comes to pest control, right? One of the things that you really need to stay on top of is pest control, right? Whether it's focusing on making sure you don't have any roaches, you don't have any bed bugs, which is huge, but you also need to be focusing on rodents, rats, mice, in Florida, possums, raccoons. Focus on that. This week, during one of our inspections, we found 2 rats swimming in the pool. Although we went out and inspected the actual house, no signs of any entry into the house. But the fact that we saw them in the pool is concerning. So we notified pest control, and they went ahead and put out traps. So just make sure that when you're running your business, that you're definitely making sure that you're on top of pest control, making sure your inspections are strictly for that. To conclude this video, if you have any questions or comments, list them below. Don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.